a comprehensive continuation of stormwater flow from a manhole that's going to be located in Ford Parkway, all the way down through the spine into what's called Park C, and then across Mississippi River Boulevard and down to the river. So,
excuse me, David.
yes, sir.
Maybe it's just me, but I'm not seeing your screen anymore in the presentation.
Oh, you're not.
Anybody else having that problem?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
we lost it.
Same
So
here.
you want to try it one more time, David?
Okay,
Sorry.
let's try it again. How do we get out of this end slideshow? Let's go back to the way we had it in the first place and try sharing it again. How about we
There we
work
go.
off this? How about if we work off this slide?
Yeah,
We
that's
can see it
perfect,
just
David.
fine now.
Okay, all right, and I can always zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. But where did you lose me at? Discussion of the roadways? Or thereabouts? Either way, I'll pick it up with the discussion. This is Cretin along this spine here. This will be Cretin. This will be Mount Curve going up along this roadway here and connecting up here. This will be Montreal going through here and connecting up to Cleveland. And then this one here is called Boland, and that's important because there's a fairly substantial wall structure that's located right here called the Boland Wall, and I won't get into that unless there's a need to. But what I came to the committee to talk about is predominantly the intersections of Mount Curve right here, Cretin right here, and Montreal and Cleveland right here. Talk about those primary offsite improvements. So with that, let us move to Mount Curve, and we can always refer back if you need me to the slide number 2, and we can take a look at it in a much bigger context if you want. And if I'm going too fast, Menica, please stop me, or whoever, please stop me and give me the questions. I don't have the ability to monitor the chat right now, so I would greatly appreciate if there are questions to just holler them out or stop me. So thank you. The intersection of Mountain Curve and Ford Parkway is going to see a number of different things happening to it this year or this summer. What you're looking at on the screen right now is a section of the roadway from the signing and striping plans of the approved plan set. And in this particular case, we've got north is to the right, Ford Parkway, east-west is up and down on the plan sheet. So it gives you a little bit of orientation. As far as what is going to be happening to the intersection is right now there is no intersection here. Right now it's kind of a quasi four-legged intersection, but not really a four-legged intersection. There's going to be a formal four-legged intersection put in here with this leg of Mount Curve being installed. As part of that, there's going to be a signal installed at this intersection. There's no signal there right now. It's going to be a brand new signal. There's going to be a reconstruction of a manhole in the middle or thereabouts. There's going to be a reconstruction of a drop shaft over in this area, and new storm sewer piping associated with that in going across this intersection. Of course, we'll have the new signing and the new striping and the new paving that goes along with it. The timeline for this is relatively quick because they need to have a secondary access into the site that works on a regular basis and not just for construction traffic. So they're going to be looking to do this in April and May of this year, and they're looking to do it likely in 3 different phases. with one phase being the manhole reconstruct, the next phase being the drop shaft and the north intersection realignment project. And then the third phase would be the south intersection and the signal work. So they're anticipating that taking over roughly first week of April to about the end of May. So 7 weeks, 8 weeks at the most, depending on when frost out happens, as well as when if there's any bad weather that happens over the course of or those 2 months. April and May generally aren't too bad from a severe winter weather perspective, but they can often be very rainy, and that does hamper construction activities. So, and some things to note with respect to the transportation at this intersection is that the intersection will have exclusive left turn lanes for all 4 legs. That's a requirement based on the AUAR and the results of the traffic study in the AUAR that was led by Menica, as well as through lanes of traffic. You get two through lanes of traffic in both directions when everything is complete. There's also the addition of a bike trail on the south side of Ford Parkway that is going to be continuous from MRB to the east project edge for the time being, with the west project edge, or from that point to, I believe it is Kenneth or thereabouts, being identified as a future need for connecting the system. So from a finish standpoint, you're going to have bicycle facilities, both north-south as well as east-west. The north-south are going to be transitioning from off-road on Mount Curve south leg to on-road Mount Curve north leg. For Ford Parkway, it's going to be off-road the entire stretch on the south side. And Reuben Collins, as I recall, has been intimately involved with the review process of this and is very familiar with how these transitions are going to happen at these locations. The other thing I should back up on and mention is that as far as the phasing of the construction is going to happen, there won't be a full closure of this intersection. There may be a periodic full closure for a very, very brief period, but the intent, my intent is that let's put it this way, the city's intent is that this intersection have at least one lane of traffic open in both directions at all times, and that to the extent possible, any of the turning movements that need to be made can be made either from Mount Curve to Ford Parkway or vice versa from Ford Parkway to Mount Curve. So that because you're going to need them absolutely for an emergency vehicle perspective, as well as this is a major route between the cities, and the only other route that would be a detour route would take you all the way up to Marshall, and that's pretty long hike for a lot of traffic to go all the way up to Marshall and head over on the bridge on Marshall. So that's essentially the Mount Curve Ford Parkway intersection. Any questions so far? Okay, hearing none, we go to the Cretin intersection, and this is on 2 separate sheets, and I apologize for that, or 2 different view windows, because but that's the way the designer had put it together. Here again, we have north to the right and west to the top of the sheet and east to the bottom of the sheet. This lower panel shows what the intersection is going to look like. The vast majority of this is all within the site and is currently being worked on as far as Cretin is concerned, bringing in gravel and things of that nature, but it's not necessarily important as far as our discussion of the intersection is concerned at this point in time. A lot of the same things that happened at the Mount Curve intersection are going to be happening at the Cretin intersection, in that there's going to be a reconstruction of all 4 quadrants. All 4 quadrants will be completely redone. There will be a continuation of the bike way across the intersection, as with Mount Curve. They will retain the left turn for southbound Cretin, add a left turn for northbound Cretin coming out of the site, and there will be a single lane of through traffic in each direction. That in this particular case will double as a right as well. There's a lot of right turning traffic on Cretin that needs to bypass, and I believe there's enough room at this location for that to happen. Same configuration with Ford Parkway, and then there will be the exclusive left turns for east and westbound to north and southbound respectively, as well as 2 lanes of traffic in both directions. The current signal at this intersection will be reconstructed, adding a fourth leg to the intersection and some upgrades that are needed from a technology standpoint. Everything will be restriped and resigned according to city standards. New stormwater devices at each of these quadrants as part of their reconstruction, as well as brand new paving within the intersection. The timeline for these improvements is again going to be roughly 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and it's going to be during the months of June and July. Similarly with Mount Curve, when the work on this intersection is being completed, since the vast majority of the work was related to the water main connection that was done last fall, that's a big benefit. There's one less temporary traffic control need at this juncture for that intersection. So there's only 2 opportunities to affect traffic control and have a temporary traffic control situation. And similar to Mount Curve, the roadway is going to be required to be open, 1 lane of traffic in both directions at all times, except for very, very, very isolated instances. The traffic control, if it's not going to be completed by signal, can be done by either stop signs or flaggers. And if there's a need to close it, it might be done by flaggers just for a short period of time so that they can get the work done. I don't anticipate this year having to do work at night. The intent, and that was very clearly communicated to Ryan last year, is that nighttime work is not something the city does on a regular basis, and will likely be very encouraging to Ryan to explore other means if that's what they're looking at to complete their work. There's too much disruption to the neighborhood and to the public as far as nighttime work is concerned. So the time, for the purposes of doing the water main work, it was the only time that could be chosen because there were people that had to be out of water at the businesses that were out of water for a period of time, and they couldn't be out of water during the day. So the operation had to happen at night. It worked quicker, but it was inconvenient. That type of inconvenience isn't going to happen this year. So that's briefly what the Cretin Ford Parkway improvements are going to be. Any questions? Okay, with that, we'll move on to the Cleveland.
Sorry, Mr. Keebler.
Yes.
It's Bill and Dickey here. I just was curious about the anecdotally, and I've heard from talking to people about a lot of speeding on Cretin Avenue. It's a lot of people use it to get to the freeway, and are there thoughts about how to make sure and do some traffic calming measures on Cretin once it's open more continuously here?
Yeah. Some of the traffic control measures that are being employed are the bump outs, so you can decrease the distances, plus the medians act as kind of a buffer as far as that is concerned. But good question, Bill. And as far as points north are concerned, with the further offsite intersections, there's an understanding that there is and there has been ever since I've been with the city in 2004, issues with traffic on Cretin and the amount of traffic and the speed of traffic and using it as cut throughs and potentially having trucks on Cretin. That's certainly a big conversation to have, and to the extent that the Ford project or the Highland Bridge project can do that within their confines, they're open to doing it. And in that context, they've added the bump outs at this location, but they've also, internal to the site, done some necking and narrowing at other intersections along the way. So to the extent that the Highland Bridge project can do that, they will do that. But specific to points north of here, that's going to be a larger conversation within traffic engineering. And if Ruben's on the phone and he's got any added input, I would defer to him at this point. So, but good question.
Thanks.
All right.
This is Ruben. I don't have anything to add. That was well said, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. So on to the easy peasy lemon squeezy intersection. This one is fairly straightforward, but it does do a few things that I think lend itself to the traffic calming approach better than, say, the Cretin or the Mount Curve intersections. Right now, this intersection is a three-legged intersection at Cleveland and Montreal. And as you, I'm guessing, already know, there's a flasher there to allow for pedestrian crossings at the location. That flasher will be coming out, I believe. Again, I don't know where that last conversation ended at this point. I'm trying to recall from my mind what that was. And I know that there was discussion of removing it as part of this because it's going to be changing from an all the configurations that it is right now into an always stop condition, which presents issues when you have hierarchy of differing traffic control devices. So that being said, I believe that signal is coming out, or the flasher is coming out, and it's going to rely on the always stop control for the traffic control, as well as bumping out the intersections. There's a new median that's going to be added on here. You will have an off-road bikeway on both sides, east side and west, to get you to Cleveland as far as the bikeways are concerned. And then it will be in some fashion in the not too distant future transitioned into an on-road system. There will also be a median installed as part of the improvements, and brand new pedestrian ramps in all 8 directions. For the ramps will be combined user ramps, and 4 of the ramps will be pedestrian related, but all 4 will still meet ADA requirements. From a timeline perspective, this intersection's probably just going to take a couple of weeks to do. And it's going to be potentially at the end of June, beginning of July, depending on how other things are going relative to the project, including the weather. So if there's one intersection that can be flexible, this is the one intersection that can be flexible, because it's a rather quick construction process for this intersection. The other 2 pretty much need to keep going on the timeline that they're on, and this one can move a little bit. So not much else to report on this intersection, but I'm open to any kind of questions that you might have at this point.
Thank you, David. Questions from anyone? Comments? Yes, Member Kutsky.
Thank you. This is Tony Kutsky. David, thanks for the presentation. And question probably going back to the Ford Parkway Mount Curve intersection. As the bike lanes in-road north of the intersection transition into off-road facilities, are those separate bike lanes or are they shared use paths? It's tough to tell on the drawing here if those are sidewalks that they're going to transition onto or separate bikeways.
On the side of Mount Curve,
Correct, on the south side.
right? Those are going to be bikeways specific for the bicycle, and there's also going to be sidewalks there. So they're going to have both sidewalks and bikeways on Mount Curve,
Great, that addresses my question. Thank you.
just like they do here on Ford Parkway. So good question though, because it's kind of tough to see the line between, you see this line right in between there and you don't know if that's because there's a sidewalk or something else adjacent to it. But yep, good question.
I appreciate that. I was concerned that we were transitioning bikes onto the sidewalks the way it kind of looked. So.
Right. No, very good question.
David, I'll add on to that if you don't mind. This is Ruben.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'm glad you asked that question. The model we're seeing here is pretty typical throughout the Ford site, and it is very different from many other bike facilities that you'll find throughout the city of St. Paul. As David mentioned, what we're seeing there is I believe the dimensions are a 6-foot sidewalk adjacent to a 6-foot bike lane, both of which are separated from the road by a boulevard landscaping type of space. So these are behind the curb. This will be one of St. Paul. This will be the first time where St. Paul has constructed one-way bike lanes behind the curb. We've done two-way bike lanes behind the curb before on say Jackson Street or some other trails around town, but this will be the first one-way facility, and those will be immediately adjacent to the sidewalk. I think I think there is a little bit of an experiment here in terms of how much the bikes will stick to the bikeway and how much the pedestrians will stick to the sidewalk, or whether people will use these facilities one way as they're intended. We can see kind of an example of what these look like on the ground in Richfield along 66th Street. They built a pretty similar configuration there. I really liked the way that it has worked out in Richfield, but I have certainly seen pedestrians walking in the bike lane, and if two bikes are riding side by side, I tend to see one in the bike lane and one on the sidewalk. So I think this is a little bit of an experiment, and we'll see how it goes, and we can kind of react to if we start to see any issues relating to spaces being shared more than we would like them to be. We can kind of react when we see that start to happen. Thanks.
Yeah.
So, member Gallatin, Kevin can't, his mic isn't working.
Yeah, I'm going to try again. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I switched to a different microphone. So thank you. Question for Ruben, and then I have a separate question for Dave. Ruben, how far will the bike lanes be painted on Mount Curve north of Ford Parkway? Is that expected to be done this year, or are there plans in the future?
I'm not actually sure. That might be a question for David. I'm not sure how far north they go.
Okay. Dave, any help?
Yeah, Kevin. Glad you could make it on the verbal end of it. Thanks. As far as the bike lanes, to my recollection, based on what I remember seeing in the plans, we're going to first block north. I could confirm that with you, and if you want to send me an email, I can send you the appropriate plan sheet too.
Sure, that'd be great. I'm sure the question will come up tomorrow at the Highland District Council Transportation meeting.
Yep,
And
yep.
The other question I had was regarding Cretin Avenue. Does Cretin Avenue on the Highland Bridge portion of the site include dedicated transit lanes or the possible conversion to them?
The latter of the two.
Okay,
yeah,
got it.
Because
and so is it one through lane currently?
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's correct. And you see where that median is right there? That's taking up a lot of space. You have a fairly wide median, plus then you have a fairly substantial left turn lane, and that's to take up a lot of the space that may be available at some future date should Metro Transit determine that they're going to be wanting to have some routes, or that the cohabitation of the transit and the vehicles needs to happen in separate lanes. But there is a room in the right of way. If I recall correctly, the right of way for this roadway is 90 feet. So it's a fairly robust right of way. There's a lot of room available for making some modifications if need be.
Got it. But as drawn here, the lanes would be kind of the paint would be spread out enough that it would kind of eat the space. But
Yeah.
to do a dedicated transit lane, you'd probably have to actually
Yeah.
remove the median. Am I understanding correctly?
Right, and these are raised medians,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not just striping. It is raised medians out here. But in order for them to, let's say that a rail or transit at some point in some future year were to come down or be put on Cretin, there's enough room out there for that to happen.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Member Kutsky, you have a comment?
Yeah, just to follow up to Ruben's description of the bike lanes and the example of Richfield's bike lanes. I think that this is a great approach for the site here. The AUAR had identified approximately 5,500 bike and walking trips daily to and from this site when it's fully built. And I think that within the site, there's some great amenities to handle the bike and ped movements that are going to be generated from the site. It's probably over time going to have a big focus on the harsh roadways and traffic environment that they're going to see once they get off the site, as these bicyclists that might have to use some of the identified on-road lanes will be experiencing roadways that are near at capacity and probably fairly harsh environments for biking in the area.
Thank you. Other comments or questions?
Another question here from Gallatin, if that's all right.
Sure.
Just wondering, I'm seeing the bump out into Cretin Avenue a little bit on the upper right portion. Excuse me, not Cretin Avenue, into Ford Parkway a bit. I was just wondering, how will that really kind of eat away any of the existing road surface? I'm just wondering if we're actually going to be narrowing Ford Parkway at all.
Are you talking about the southwest side or the northwest side?
Really either. I'm just wondering,
Okay.
Is this narrowing at all, or is it the existing width?
This is the existing width, but narrowed just a little bit more if possible. I'm trying to get that lane width cheated down just a little bit, but there's only so much lane width that can be decreased because it's a county road.
Mm-hmm.
And the county needs to be consistent. We need to be consistent with the county standards as well. So to say that it's a 5-foot narrowing would be incorrect. To say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of a foot, maybe 2 at the most, would be more in line with what the design would show here. So.
Understood. Thanks. Would you mind showing the same diagram for the Mount Curve intersection and just
Sure.
mention any transit stop impacts?
Let's see, we got a transit stop right here at this location.
Okay, I believe that's in front of the Baker Square.
Yep. And that's still provided for with respect to the turn. And it is a tight turn here, but they are able to make it based on the turning movements that were developed as part of the intersection change or modifications, because that was one of the clear constraints that was told to the developer and the designers, is that bus needed to make that movement. So,
Got it. Thank you. And then it looks like the A line stop, I guess it would be eastbound A line stop,
mhm,
just off the diagram, probably.
yep, up here.
Okay. And are you anticipating any impact on that? It looks like maybe the bike lane would get a little close to it.
Not anticipate any adverse effects to the A line. No, that was also one of the constraints, is that the A line couldn't be affected by the improvements that were being made on Ford Parkway. That needed to be an enhancement, if anything.
Got it. And then last question for now, do you see any reduction in existing center medians to accommodate additional left turn lane queuing?
Yeah, I believe that issue was visited down here on Ford Parkway at Cretin, and trying to remember what the results were. Ruben, do you remember what the results were of that discussion?
I remember that the median was being removed somewhat, but I don't remember to what extent.
Yeah, not a lot, just enough to get another car or two, or to change the taper a little bit. I'd have to go revisit the design iterations to find out exactly how much it changed, though.
Got it. And I'm assuming the one to turn, it's hard with the map to turn, but the one to turn southbound into the Ford site is the one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about, not this one, but this one here.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And it looks like there's a little bit of room to give. Yeah,
Right.
as I'm looking at all this, I'm just kind of wondering, like, are we gonna reduce medians to the point where they're not really there or gone completely? So thank you.
Right. You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
And I see that Tony Kutsky has a comment here about the 75-foot extension of the left turn lanes identified in AUAR.
Let me,
Just a comment that's what I found in the AUR for the traffic study.
Right. Yep. That's what I recall from the study as well, but I'm not 100% certain that they went that full 75 feet. I think they may have gone something less, and that's the only thing that I would have to check, Tony, because that was what was it? I think May or June of last year. And not to say that a lot of things happen between now and then to cause my memory to fade, but a lot of things happen between now and then to let my memory fade. So, but what I can do is I can certainly, Tony, if you want to send me an email, I can certainly get back to you as to the exact changes for that. Or Kevin, was that your original question, Kevin?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, if you want to send me an email with those specific questions, I can certainly get some answers for you.
Sure will. And sorry to change the scope of the meeting a tiny bit, but are you presenting to the Highland District Council tomorrow?
Ryan will be there presenting, and I will be there as a city representative. Yes, I don't anticipate, unless there's some direct questions coming my way or something that Ryan will need some assistance on. But I'm certainly at the disposal of the district council and Ryan as needed.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Certainly. Thank you.
And may I ask Kevin, what's the topic of the meeting tomorrow?
It's exactly this. So this is a
Okay.
nice little preview for me, but I'm trying to anticipate what questions might come up tomorrow too from the neighborhood. So
Yeah.
a great interest in the neighborhood, naturally.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what I would like to cover or reiterate as part of the improvements that are going to happen at these intersections over the course of the summer is that it's going to be inconvenient, and it's going to be dirty again, unfortunately. But the intent of the city, along with Ryan, is to make sure that the inconvenience to the traveling public is minimized, as well as maximizing the health, safety, and welfare benefits of the work that has to go on. Everybody appreciates the inconvenience is going to be there, and nobody likes construction when it has a primary impact to one's chosen routes and things of that nature. But what I will say is, based on experience from last year when they installed the water main connection at Cretin overnight, they had identified a 2-week window that they were going to get the work done, and they finished it in roughly 7 days or 6 or 7 days at the most. So if things are set up right, such that they can get the work done, maybe we can minimize the pain and misery that everybody's going to experience.
Yeah, I agree. The construction management's have been outstanding. I mean, the only part that's been inconvenient during the project has been the Mississippi River Boulevard closure, because that was a complete closure. But other than that, I don't think Ford Parkway will be a big deal during the construction phase. I think the interest from the community will be, in the long term, configuration and what that's going to mean for traffic flows and things. So I mean, obviously we've seen, the neighborhood has seen plans. It's all been publicly available throughout the city. But I think, just seeing the final implementation, this is the first time I'm seeing kind of the final design. So I think it's fascinating.
Right. Well, and Kevin, you bring up something that Jeff, maybe we expand on a little bit, is that Mississippi River Boulevard crossing that is going to happen at sometime this summer. There will be a full closure of Mississippi River Boulevard again this summer. It's still not determined how long that's going to be. There's still some design processes that are being worked on as far as the connection is concerned. The detour will be the same as it was last year for it, but there will be an additional closure of MRB. What has to happen and what has been communicated to Ryan and what they fully understand is a little bit of is more communication as it relates to that closure is concerned. Because last year when the closure happened with respect to the drop shaft, it was only supposed to be a month, and then it turned out being 2 months because of construction related issues. So that type of communication, or a communication of those types of events, is important. So that was the one that I don't know why I didn't include it on here, and I apologize to the committee for that, but that would be one of the other major events that is going to happen this summer is work on that crossing from what is called, I should go back up to slide number 2, from Park C, which is right here, across MRB into Hidden Falls. So that will be one other traffic impact for the season. And what we're trying to do in that context is create a situation where you still have Ford Parkway traversable with one lane of traffic in both directions, because you don't want to make it worse with the closure of the MRB work that's going to happen there, if that makes any sense.
It does. Thanks. So that's the south end crossing.
That's
MRB cross.
Yep, the MRB crossing is down here into the Hidden Falls Regional Park from right about here, if you can see where I'm moving my cursor.
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Okay, Member Schalberg, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. Just to follow up on the MRB closure, will that be the same where the trail will still be open?
Some of those details are trying to be worked out right now. There will be, however, times where the trail will have to be closed, but there will be communication and information provided to the users that of the pending closure. We're still in discussions as far as what the traffic control would look like, because of the fact that different from the drop shaft installation last year, this would require closure at some point of the trail, whereas last year with the drop shaft, the trail could remain open the entire time. Good question though.
Thanks. Yeah, kind of advanced communication to users will be important with that too, because people use that to commute as well.
Very much so. Yeah, absolutely.
And David, did you mention the estimated time range when it would start and end? I know that you haven't completely, is there a range when this might happen?
Yeah, the road closure would likely be, well, see, I'd rather not say at this point rather than,
Sure.
and provide you with a, information that is, half there or partially there and gets construed to be, inaccurate then at that point. And because of the moving parts that are related to the process design and the project design, what I think or what we were talking about the other day as far as the closure is concerned, may be totally different than what it actually ends up being.
Got it.
Because one of the requirements I'm going to likely impose upon Ryan will be to minimize the closure. And by that, I mean not just in length and breadth, but duration as well. And if that is the case, there's going to need to be a determination of what does that mean and what does that look like. So.
Understood. Thank you.
Certainly. Thanks.
Other comments, questions?
Hi, this is Trayton, and I have a question for you guys.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and let me know if this is out of your scope, but the Ford site itself, I know you're connecting into it on a couple different locations. Do you have any idea of a more concrete proposal of what's going to be going in there?
I mean, as far as the private development is concerned?
Yeah, and more specifically where you're tying in.
For the roadways?
Yep.
Okay. I can handle the roadways. Menica, you wanna handle the private development side?
Sure, sorry, can you repeat?
There was a question about what's happening on the site from a private development perspective as well as tying in from a roadway perspective. I said I would cover the roadways. Would you want to talk
Sure.
just a little bit about private?
So for private development site, a lot of subdivision has been happening currently in the city. So if you see David's photo right now, you can sort of see these large blocks of land. And so we've done a couple subdivisions for the row homes, which is subdividing sort of the eastern side of the site into lots for row homes, and then also all the way on Mississippi River Boulevard, we've subdivided a couple sites into the 1 to 6 unit homes. So we don't know the developers yet for that. Also, the big project on Ford and Cretin, there's a couple there that completed their site plan review a couple months ago. It's a multifamily building, a little over 200 units. I can't remember it off the top of my head. And then directly behind that is also an affordable housing project, Common Bond, that went through site plan review last year. And currently the city is reviewing the first phase of the row home projects in site plan review.
In this area here.
Yep.
And then Presbyterian Homes, that's right here, right?
Yes, and Presbyterian Homes, which is market rate senior housing, is another project that just finished its site plan review. They're doing some memory care units and some assisted living.
Mm-hmm.
It's over 50 units. It's many units. Sorry, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head.
It's fairly substantial undertaking though, yeah. And then this over here is predominantly affordable housing, right? Or multi-unit housing, I should say.
It's multi-unit housing. So the projects will be a mix of some affordable, and then most of the market rate projects will have 1% of 60% AMI housing units in them as well.
Okay. Thank you, Menica. As far as the roadways, the tie-ins, there's a roadway tie-in at Cretin. Montreal and Cleveland. There's a tie-in up here at Cretin, in Ford Parkway, tie-in here in Mount Curve in Ford Parkway, a tie-in here at Boland, Mississippi River Boulevard, 3 non-motorized roadways that will be tying into Mississippi River Boulevard, one called Village Way, one called Saunders, and one called Beechwood. Beechwood, Village Way, and Saunders. Village Way will extend all the way over to the east side of the site and have a bridge over the central water utility. But these are the 3 non-motorized roadways that if you extend them into Mississippi River Boulevard, that they will have connections. Montreal will also be connected to Mississippi River Boulevard. And Finn, I believe. I believe Finn is also connected to MRB. So you have a number of connections to Mississippi River Boulevard, some non-motorized, some vehicular. And then, of course, the major connections at the 2 signals up here and this major connection at Montreal that we talked about, the all-way stop controlled intersection. Does that help on the context of private development and connections?
Yep, that's good. Thank you. I guess would just suggest continuing communication with those private developers with what's going on with the bike lanes there on Ford Parkway. But thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other comments? Questions? All right, well, I want to thank David for joining us and giving a really informative presentation. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Jeff, if there's anybody that wants some additional information or things come up later in their mind that they want to ask me a question about, feel free to send me an email or give me a phone call, and we can either chat or correspond. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, David.
Yep.
And our next meeting is February 22nd. I see from what Bill put together, it's on the Hillcrest site transportation analysis. So that should be interesting. So thanks, everyone. I'll adjourn the meeting now. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Good night.